You might not know it, but as a first and second generation woman, your perfectionism might actually be holding you back, especially when it comes to setting and achieving goals. In this video, I'm going to go through 3 kind of sneaky ways that perfectionism is really sabotaging your success. All right, let's jump in. So the first barrier is that you're not tying your goals to your why or your values. So when you're a perfectionist, a lot of times you might fall into just following or going along with the mold because you have to follow certain rules. So maybe if your family has always done it this way, or that's the expectation, you just need to do X, Y, and Z, you just go along with the mold and you don't really sit and consider what are the goals that you want and why. Like, what is important to you about this? So let's say you're trying to consider your career and you're not sure which path to go, and you think, well, maybe I'll just go the safe route. I'll just become a nurse because that's what everyone in my family does or encourages me to do. But the truth is that's not really aligned to your why or your values, what you're seeking out of career. So this could be really kind of starting to self-examine and say, what is it that I'm seeking from a career? What are the values that I want, the day in and day out? Really envision, like, what is it that you're seeking from this avenue in your life, and then tie that back to, it would be maybe being a therapist, or maybe it means pursuing marketing instead, or something freelance, whatever that is, and then tying that back to your goal, right? So you're really tying into your reason, your motivation, not just following a blind rule. Same thing, let's say you're trying to lose weight, and this one I know we all have, especially new year, new you, and all that, and I have mixed feelings about that. I'm all for healthy growth, but I also don't want you to just lose weight just because that's what the mindset or like what society says you need to do. But if that's important to you, that's related to your health goals and you want to lose weight, I would really encourage you to tie this not to like you have to because you need to follow certain beauty standards or because you're tired of getting comments from your family about your weight, which I know, especially as Hispanic cultures, people do that a lot, which we really need to change that. But also you tying it into your motivation. Like, so instead of this like grueling punishment, you have to do it. Think really like, what's your why here, right? If you think about health, is it because you want to be around longer for your kids? You want to be able to, take a hike with your kids and not feel winded? Is it because you have a personal goal of wanting to do like a Disney 5K? So really tie this goal to like something that's meaningful to you. That way, when you see this on your calendar, it's not like, oh, this other thing I have to do. It's like a grueling thing. And even if you have those thoughts, you can then really step back and tie this like, okay, if I do this activity, it's going to bring me one step closer to being able to do that hike with my kids without feeling winded out, right? Or one step closer to going to Disney and doing this 5K. So it's really important here is tying your goals to your why or your values that are important to you, not just following some random rules. The second barrier is you have this rigid and fixed mindset when it comes to goals. So what I mean about that, someone who's a perfectionist really holds on to this like all or nothing mentality, black or white. There's no room for gray. And really, when we're setting goals, it's great to have very specific goals and have a very measurable way, right? So kind of following that SMART acronym, if you haven't heard that, let me know in the comments below and I'll do another video on that. But either way, it's you're having very specific measurable goals, but what's really important is also being able to adopt this flexibility mindset, because the reality is that life happens. Things get in our way, unexpected situations show up. You have a busier week than expected, and that's okay. You're not going to be able to hit your goals flawlessly or perfectly. You need to be able to adopt this really flexible mindset. So what that means, so again, let's say you are trying to get healthier or lose weight, but you missed 2 days because, work got really busy and you had a deadline that you didn't really expect, or your boss just really expected more from you. So you couldn't go to that workout that you wanted to do. You couldn't go to the class. Instead of having this all or nothing, like you missed 1 or 2 days, that's it, you're done. And then going into like, well, F it mode, and I'm just going to go back to my bad habits or old habits. Really kind of think about, is there some way that you can, in this moment, react differently? So think about, okay, I didn't hit that class. Could I do 10 minutes of walking in my house, right? Or just pop on a quick yoga playlist, whatever the case is. Or if I miss those 2 days, okay, those 2 days are gone. There's literally nothing you can do about that. But in this moment, you can choose to be flexible and adopt a mindset of like, okay, if my value here is health, that hasn't gone away, right? That value is something I can hit today, and think about, is there something I can do today to adopt this mindset? So really kind of thinking about that negative mindset of that all or nothing, that rigid mindset, and needing to be more flexible. Another one might be, let's say you're putting yourself back out in the dating field and you have this mindset that if like you go on 1 or 2 bad dates, like, okay, you can handle it. But if you're on 5 consistent bad dates, that's it. You're out. You're never going to do this again. You're not going to do online or app dating. That's it. And so again, I would really encourage you, like, if that happens, okay, if you need to take a break because that was really defeating in those moments, not what you wanted to happen, sure, take a break, recoup, do what you need to do. But if this goal of finding a partner, putting yourself out there is important to you, then you have to be willing to go back and deal with some of these uncomfortable situations, right? Again, so really having that flexible mindset, not this rigid all or nothing. And this is also, again, when you're reviewing goals, thinking about like, okay, the progress you made. So not just rigidly focusing on the outcome. Of course, we all want to hit those outcomes, but sometimes we can get really stuck in this negative, critical mindset and think, oh gosh, I didn't hit my weight goal, or I'm still not in a relationship. What's wrong with me? I did all these things, but really thinking about like the progress that you made, the actions, the small steps that you took forward, right? Because a lot of times as a perfectionist, we focus on what we're not doing and we lose sight of all the things that we actually have done to move forward. This reminds me of this quote from Kelly Wilson, who's an ACT guru, one of the ACT founders. ACT is acceptance and commitment therapy, and also what the foundation of acceptance and commitment coaching. But either way, the quote is, you can either commit, slip, and quit, or you can commit, slip, and recommit, right? And so this is him really talking about substance abuse, but really when you think about any behavior, it's that same mindset. Really have to make room for when we slip, there's a choice there. We can either let that slip become an all-out kind of relapse when we're thinking about substance abuse, or a relapse back to old behaviors, or we can then choose very intentionally in that moment to recommit to our value here. What's important to me about this behavior here? What can I do differently? This period is about setting goals that are too lofty or just too many goals at the same time. So as a perfectionist, you have a tendency to have high standards, to really expect a lot from yourself. And that just seems to be baseline. You might not even realize that they're high standards, but you could be setting yourself up for failure, because when you're trying to change behaviors, if you put too much on your plate, you're just going to overwhelm yourself and burn out. So really getting clear on like the 1 or 2, maybe 3 goals that you really want to focus on, and then breaking those down into very specific measurable goals, not only monthly or quarterly, but then weekly and daily. Like, what is it that you need to do daily, weekly to hit that goal? But again, small 1 to 3 goals max, because if you put 10 goals, you're more likely not to do it because it's just too much. It's too overwhelming. So if you think about, let's say you are trying to launch a business and you're saying like, oh, I want to launch a podcast, launch a book, launch a YouTube, and you're trying to do all of this while making income and doing your full-time job because you need to, first get some income as a side hustle, then you can go full-time. It's realistically saying like, is that even sustainable for you? And maybe you can do that, because that's the thing about perfectionism. And as a perfectionist, you probably can maintain a high pace for a good amount of time, but eventually you might fizzle out. Or this inverse, right? Something that might not look like a perfectionism is that you tend to really get stuck in this analysis paralysis. You procrastinate. It feels like you can't deal with that emotional difficulty in that moment, and you get really stuck because you don't have room for flexibility or dealing with failures. And I'm not even saying that's a failure, it's just a mistake. Either way, that having too much on your plate or expecting too much of yourself can backfire. Same thing, let's say you want to have this goal of like practicing mindfulness and you've never kind of really incorporated this into your life, and you say, you know what, I'm going to start with 30 minutes a day, 7 days a week. That's a lot, right? Especially if you've never sat for like 3 minutes consistently. Doing that is probably going to set you up for failure. So I would say start really small, start with 3 to 5 minutes, 3 times a week. And if that feels too much, start with 1 time a week. Again, really thinking about what's achievable for you based on your level and making it a difficulty of like a 6 or 7. Once you get that down, then go to the next one and the next step and the next step until you hit your goal, and until that goal starts to become a habit or routine that you no longer have to think about that. Once you've ingrained that, then you can add a new goal into your life. If you're ready to break free from perfectionism and actually be able to achieve your goals, then you're in luck, because I'm doing a beta group program. This is a limited program, lowest price you'll ever see, where I'm really going to help you learn how to achieve your goals, get more confidence, not let perfectionism get in your way. If this is something that you're interested in, just comment me below and I'll reach out to you so we can start a chat about what this program will look like. And like I always say, I encourage you to continue nurturing your mind, body, and soul, whatever that looks like for you. Thanks, guys, and Happy New Year.